Develop the ability to absorb, the ability to soak it up like you're doing today. Be like a sponge. Don't miss anything. And not just the words. It's true. Don't miss the words, but don't miss the atmosphere. Don't miss the color. Don't miss the scenario. Don't miss what's going on. Most people are just trying to get through the day. Here's what I want you to be committed to do. Learn to get from the day. Don't just get through it. Get from it. Learn from it. Let the day teach you. Join the University of Life. What a difference that will make in your future. Commit yourself to learning. Commit yourself to absorbing. Be like a sponge. Get it. Don't miss it. I've got a personal friend of mine who's so gifted in this area. I think he has soaked up and remembers everything that's ever happened to him. He can tell you as a teenager where he was and what he did and what he said and what he said and how they felt and the color of the sky and what was going on that day. And the reason is because he gets it. He gets it. I'm telling you, it's more exciting to have him go to Acapulco, come back and tell you about it, than it is to go yourself. He's unbelievable, but let it touch you. It's let sad things make you sad. Let happy things make you happy. I'm telling you, give in to the emotion. Let the emotion strike you, not just the words, not just the image. Let the feeling strike you. Here's what's important. Our emotions need to be as educated as our intellect. It's important to know how to feel. It's important to know how to respond. It's important to let life in. Let it touch you. I'm the greatest guy in the world to take to the movies, and I get into a good movie. I want a good movie. Make me laugh. Make me cry. Scare me to death. Teach me something. Take me high. Take me low. Just don't leave me as I was when I came in. Touch me. Do something to me. Maybe you heard the story about the evangelist here in Texas way back in the horse and buggy days. He used to put up his tent in these various Texas towns and hold tent revivals, and he put up his tent. One of these towns expected a big crowd be coming here and preach, and he got there first night of the tent revival, and he walked inside the tent. It was empty, and he thought something must be wrong. He waited till 8 hours. Nobody showed up. He waited till 8 hours 15. Not a soul. Finally, 8 hours 30. One lone cowboy wandered up on his horse, tied his horse up outside, came in, sat down in the front bench. Big, empty tent. So the preacher thought, well, at least I better go down and talk to the cowboy. So he goes down, talks to the cowboy, and he says, Cowboy, I don't know what to tell you. He said, I'm the preacher, and this tent was supposed to be full of people. And he said, something's gone wrong. I really don't know what to do. I'm embarrassed. And he said, I don't know what to do. And the cowboy said, well, you know, I'm not a preacher. I'm just a cowboy, so I can't tell you what to do. But he said, I know this. If I went out to feed my cattle and only one showed up, I'd at least feed it. So the preacher said, hey, the cowboy is right. I'm embarrassed. And he said, I don't know what to do. And the cowboy said, well, you know, I'm not a preacher. I'm just a cowboy, so I can't tell you what to do. But he said, I know this. If I went out to feed my cattle and only one showed up, I'd at least feed it. So the preacher said, hey, the cowboy is right. If you've got a message to share, if there's one person or 1,000, and don't let your ego get in the way, you know, you should do the best you can. So he got kind of inspired by this conversation with the cowboy, jumped up on the platform, started preaching it as if the tent was full of people. And he was so inspired, he just kept going and kept going. Went for an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, finally wound down and quit. Come down off the platform, talked to the cowboy again, said, well, cowboy, what did you think of us? Cowboy said, well, I'm not a preacher, so I can't really tell. I'm just a cowboy. But he said, I know this. If I went out to feed my cattle and only one showed up, I'd feed it, but I wouldn't dump the whole load on it. We've covered the first two abilities in the personal development quest. One is the ability to absorb. Don't miss anything. Pay attention. Good watch. Pay attention. Things are moving so fast these days. You got to pay attention. Pick it up. Soak up the colors. Soak up the sounds. Soak up what's going on. Second, respond. Let life touch you. Let the emotions affect you as well as the sights. Now here's the third ability. Develop the ability to reflect. Reflect means go back over. Study it again. Go back over these notes that you're taking today. Go back through the cassette one more time. Read the text one more time. But there's more to it than that. Go back over your day. I call it run the tapes again so that the day locks in firmly. Here's some good times to reflect. One at the end of the day, take a few minutes. At the end of the day, go back over the day. Who did you see and what they say and what happened? How do you feel? What went on so that you capture that day? I call it run the tapes again so that the day locks in firmly. Here's some good times to reflect. One at the end of the day, take a few minutes. At the end of the day, go back over the day. Who did you see and what they say and what happened? How do you feel? What went on so that you capture that day? A day is a piece of the mosaic of your life. Number 1, don't create casual. Number 2, get from the day. And then number 3, go back over the day so that it locks in that experience. The knowledge, the sight, the sound, the panorama, the color motion picture of the day. Just lock it in so that it will serve you for the future. Having that day not missing. Next, take a few hours at the end of the week. Call time to reflect. Go back over your time or go back over your calendar. Go back over your appointment book. Where did you go and who did you see? And how did it feel? And what went on capture that week? A week is a pretty good chunk of time. Next, take half a day at the end of the month. Call time to reflect and do the same thing again. Go back over what you read. Go back over what you heard. Go back over what you saw. Go back over the feelings to capture it so that it serves you for the next take. A weekend at the end of the year to establish this year now firmly in your consciousness, firmly in your experience bank so that you've got it, so that it never disappears. Good ability to acquire, the ability to reflect, go back over. It's so valuable to be able to remember the thought, remember the idea, remember the experience, remember the occasion, remember the day, remember the weather, remember the emotion, remember the complexity, remember the highs, remember the laws. So valuable at the end of the day, lock that day in. Lock the month in. Lock the weekend. Lock the air in Old Testament says a unique scenario unfolded according to the law. And that was they worked 9 years, and the 10th year was a sabbatical. And not just to relax, not just to replenish, not maybe just to get physically in shape, a change of pace, we call it, in the modern society. But not just for that. I'm sure that in ancient days, that sabbatical was to go over the last 9 years. What went right and what went wrong and what worked well and what didn't work well. And how did you grow and how did you learn? And how did you got now after 9 years that you didn't have? At the beginning of the 9 years, see that so valuable. There's also something to be said for solitude when you reflect. Sometimes you can reflect with somebody. Husband or wife reflect on the past year, right? Parents reflect with their children on the past year. How did we do it? And how did we do it? And how could we improve? Colleagues can reflect with each other, but now here's one of the most important. You got to learn to reflect with yourself. There's something to be said for solitude. There's something to be said for taking those occasions to shut out the world and shut out everything else for a while. For a while, I've got a motorhome home, so I do my motorcycle on the back and I head for the mountains and ride the Jeep trails. Or there's very few human beings on the Jeep trails or out in the desert somewhere. It's called my time to get away. When you live a very public life, you treasure solitude, a chance to reflect. Go back over my life. Go back over my skills. Go back over my experiences alone. There are some things you need to do alone. Ponder, think, wonder, read, study, absorb, soak in. See if you can't become better this year than you were last year. Better the next 9 than you were the first 9 solitude. There's even a more modern advice that says, go to the closet for time of meditation, time of prayer. Go to the closet. Closet meaning, what away? And there's even a graphic description of the away said enter into your closet, and what got some students here, I'm sure what closed the door for. For what? Just to shut out everything. Life is experience and touching and seeing and looking and doing and acting and disciplines and all the stuff. But sometimes this is where this reflecting is so important, to shut the door. Just shut the door and wonder, prayer, contemplation and thinking, and let things move into your consciousness. An awareness that no other way can it be done path more valuable to serve you for the future. Here's what's really powerful: learning to gather up the past and invest it in the future, to gather up today and invest it in tomorrow. Gather up this week and invest it in the next week. Gather up this year and invest it in the next year. See that's so powerful? Rather than just hanging on one more year, hanging in there, you know what's going to happen? Learn, study. This is part of the personal development quest, becoming better than you are, more valuable than you are. Not just in terms of economics, in terms of motherhood, in terms of fatherhood, in terms of being a better brother, a better colleague. making a better contribution to the family, to society, to the community, to the church, to the office, to the commitment, to the partnership. It doesn't matter what it is that has value work on yourself, then you bring more value to the partnership, to the marriage, to the franchise, to the corporation, to the enterprise, to the community, to the nation. Self-development, personal development. The best contribution you can make to someone else is self-development, not self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice only earns contempt. Self-development earns respect. I pity the mother who says, "I'm just going to give up my life for my children." Self-sacrifice is not noble. The self-investment is noble from self-development. If I work on myself and become more valuable, think of what that'll do for our friendship. I used to use the old expression, "You take care of me and I'll take care of you." I found out how shallow and short-ended that was, and I changed it to read like this: "I'll take care of me for you, if you will. Please take care of you for me." And this is part of it, the personal development, that we work harder on ourselves than we do on our job. Now we bring that to the friendship. Now we bring that to the marriage. Now we bring that to the family relationship as a father, as a mother. And we develop the strength and we develop the power. That's key. And it takes, I think, this scenario of disciplines, these abilities to acquire those gifts and those skills at value so that we bring more. Now we bring more to the next week. We bring more to the next month. We bring more to the next year. If you follow this, absorb, respond, and reflect. I said to my father when he was about to turn 76, his 76th birthday, I said, "Dear father of mine, can you imagine what it's going to be like to gather up the last 75 years of your life and invest them in your 76th year? What a difference of philosophy. Rather than just hanging on one more year, gather up 75 and invest them in the next room. Gather up the last 6 years and invest it in the next year. He that's so powerful in communication, which we're going to study soon. So powerful." Here's number 4. Develop the ability to act. Take action, not hasty if it isn't required, but don't lose much time. Here's the time to act with the ideas hot and the emotion is strong. That's the time to act, you say, "Mr. Young. I'd like to have a library like yours. See if you feel strong about that. What you've got to do is get the first book and then get the second book before the feeling passes and before the idea gets them. Action. Pronto. Action. Immediate action as soon as possible. Because if you don't, here's what happens. We call it the law of diminishing intent. We intend to when the idea strikes us. We intend to when the emotion is high. But now, if you don't translate that into action fairly soon, now the intent starts to diminish. Diminish. And a month from now, it's cold. A year from now can't be found. So set up a discipline when the emotions are high and the idea is strong and clear and powerful. That's the time to set up the discipline. Somebody talks about good health and you're stirred, right? I need to get a book on nutrition. Get the book before the idea passes and do before the emotion gets cold. Go for the book, start the library, start the process, fall on the floor, do some push-ups, action. Got to take action. Otherwise, the wisdom is wasted. Otherwise, the emotion soon passes. Unless you put it into a disciplined activity. Capture it disciplines is called how to capture the emotion and how to capture the wisdom and translate it into equity disciplines. Go for the book, start the library, start the process, fall on the floor, do some push-ups, action. Got to take action. Otherwise, the wisdom is wasted. Otherwise, the emotion soon passes. Unless you put it into a disciplined activity. Capture it disciplines is called how to capture the emotion and how to capture the wisdom and translate it into equity disciplines. Now, here's what's important about disciplines. All disciplines affect each other. In fact, here's a good philosophical phrase: everything affects everything else. Nothing stands alone. They'll be naive in saying, "Well, this doesn't matter." I'm telling you, everything matters. There are some things that matter more than others, but there isn't anything that doesn't matter. Okay, we all pity the man who says, "Well, this is the only place I let down." Not true. He to take home every letdown affects the rest of your performance. Every letdown affects the rest. This is part of the educational process on personal development. If you don't take the walk around the block, you probably won't do the apple a day. If you don't do the apple a day, you probably won't consist. Start building your library. If you don't build your library, you probably won't keep a journal and you won't take pictures and you won't do this. You won't do wise things that your money won't do wise things with your time, won't do wise things with your possibilities and relationships. And the first thing you know, 6 years of that accumulated and we say you have messed up. So the whole key to reversing that process now is to start picking up these disciplines. Now here's the positive. Neglect starts as an infection, and if you don't take care of it, it becomes a disease, and one neglects to another. And the worst of all, when neglect starts, it diminishes our self-worth, our self-confidence, our self-value. You say, well, how can I get back my self-respect? I'm telling you, don't have to go to 29 classes. All you have to do is start the smallest discipline, but now corresponds to your own philosophy. Like I should, then I could, and I will. No longer will I let neglect stack up on me, so that I will have the sorry scenario 6 years from now, giving some excuse instead of celebrating my progress. That's the key to discipline. All you have to do is start the smallest discipline, but now corresponds to your own philosophy. Like I should, then I could, and I will. No longer will I let neglect stack up on me, so that I will have the sorry scenario 6 years from now, giving some excuse instead of celebrating my progress. That's the key to discipline. Okay, let's get kids involved in the least of disciplines. One more, and then one more, and then another one, and then another one, and then some more. And the first thing you know, you're starting to weave the tapestry of a disciplined life into which you can pour more wisdom, and more attitude, and more strong feeling, more faith, and more courage. Now you've got something, a vessel in which to put it, and now the equities start to flow and the early return. I'm telling you, if you'll start this process, the early return will have you so excited, you'll commit yourself to this strategy for the rest of your life. You'll never go back to the old ways. Join a new crowd, join a new group, the disciplines to do it. Take action. I recommended the last time I was here, the little book Richest Men of Babylon, and I said, I've lectured now to over 3 million people in the last 33 years, and I've recommended this little book to almost all of them, I think. Yes, how many have actually gone and got this little book? Answer, very few. My best guess is 10% such an easy thing to do in that last 7. I suggest that this little book, number 1, is easy to find. Number 2, it's easy to buy the most. You can pay for it $6, $7, $8. You can borrow that from your kid. And number 3, it's easy to read. It's in story form. That's why I use it for teenagers, teaching them how to be rich by 40, 35 if you're extra bright, much sooner if you find a unique opportunity. But if it's easy to find and easy to buy, and if it's easy to read, why wouldn't everybody go get it? We don't know. What do you know? You don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows. Here's how profound it is. Some do and some don't. Now here's the numbers. About 10% do, 90% don't or won't. We don't know the mystery of that. And I'm telling you, 10 years from now, those numbers will still be the same. 10% will, 90% won't. The numbers don't change. Only the faces change. You're looking at one of the faces. I used to belong to the 90% who couldn't be bothered, even if it was easy. Guess how many people have a library card? Wisdom of the world available. And I'm telling you, 10 years from now, those numbers will still be the same. 10% will, 90% won't. The numbers don't change. Only the faces change. You're looking at one of the faces. I used to belong to the 90% who couldn't be bothered, even if it was easy. Guess how many people have a library card? Wisdom of the world available. Transform your life in any value amount you want. By the way, how much is a library card in Texas? Free. Here's what free is. Easy. I mean, it can't be any easier than free. Somebody says, what would you bring it by? Well, no. At least you got to go get it. No. The wisdom of the world available. Transform your life spiritually, socially, personally, economically, in every other way. Teach you how to be rich and powerful and sophisticated and healthy, influential. How many people have a library card? Answer 3%. 7% couldn't be bothered. Guy specializes in happy hour, but it doesn't have a card, and now readily and quickly blames the government, blames his company and blames policy and blames the pay scale. When, if you only knew if he joined the 3%, here's my advice to you today. Walk away from the 97%. Don't talk like they talk. Don't act like they act. Don't go where they go. Don't specialize in what they specialize in. Throw away the blame list they cling to start you a new life. You say, well, is it as simple as getting a library card and join the 3%? And the answer is, of course, that's how easy this stuff is. This is so easy. It's so simple. It's not complex. You don't need a 2,000-year-old guru. You don't need multi-track affirmations. I'm telling you, don't. Affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusion, he says. Don't let somebody sweep you into some contrary way to nature itself. Says unless you labor the miracle of the seed in the soil and the seasons and God and all the other stuff that's available. Sunshine or rain that's not available to you by affirmation. It is only available to you by labor. So labor will learn well. Discipline yourself well, and you can have all the treasures you want. The stuff easy and simple. Let's teach our kids the simple ways to transform their health. Number 1, their economics. Number 2, their ability to communicate. Number 3, their life and treasure in lifestyle. Number 4, spirituality. Number 5, and the list goes on and on. Let's not leave out any of the list of disciplines that encourage us to do the next one, to do the next one, to do the next one. First thing you know, this whole scenario for you is spinning up instead of out of control. On the negative side, this is all you got to do. It's as simple as this. It's as simple as to start committing yourself to life change. And once you start down this road, I promise you, you'll join the 10% into 3%. Guess how many people can retire from the income of their own personal resources when it comes time to retire? Answer 5%. In the most independent country in the world, 95% are dependent. 5% are independent. Take charge of your own retirement. I'm telling you, if you take charge of your own retirement through personal development and all these skills we've taught today, take charge of your own conversation, take charge of your own family, take charge of your own possibilities and learn these skills. Develop this kind of strategy, and I'm telling you, life will open up for you. Join the 3%. Join the 10%. Join the 5%. Walk away from the 95%. In our leadership weekend, we teach. Find out what poor people read and don't read them. I'm telling you, don't talk like they talk. Don't fall into their poor philosophical scenario. Don't blame what they blame. Don't use the excuses they use. It's called the language of the poor. Switch gears, switch language, switch ideas, switch strategy. Start with the simplest of disciplines, and don't be mean any of these disciplines. The smallest of disciplines starts the process of life change. And if you will invest in this thing called discipline, you can have whatever you wish. It's called the beginning of the miracle. Now here's the last clue on discipline. Do the best you can. We covered earlier, but here's a good scenario for the dough. The best you can. I've got a good question for you. Is the best you can do all you can do? The answer is no. Strangely enough, if we all fell on the floor right now and did as many push-ups as we possibly could, and let's say for some reason you haven't been into push-ups lately, I can't imagine why. But let's say the best you can do is buy, and you look up at the rest of us and say, hey, 5 is the best I can do. We can tell by the look on your face. That's probably true. 5 is the best you can do. Now is 5 all you can do? The answer is no. If you rest a little, you can do 5 more. Wow. And if you rest a little, you can do 5 more. And if you rest a little, you can do 15 more. How did we get from 5 to 15? It's a miracle. And if you rest a little, you can do 15. Rest a little, you can do 15. Rest a little, you can do 20. How did you get from 5 to 20? It's a miracle. You know, you can keep doing that. Do a little more, rest a little. Do a little more, rest a little, and finally get up to 50 push-ups. Is it possible to get up to 50 push-ups? Of course. How do you go from 5 to 50? It's a miracle. How do you get a miracle going? Number 1, do what you can. Don't leave out what you can from writing a letter to your mother in Florida. Start cleaning it all up to doing the push-ups. Go from 5 to 50. It's a miracle. Number 1, do what you can. Number 2, do the best you can here. Number 3, rest very little. Don't rest too long. The weeds will take the garden. Kids have got that figured out. Can't rest too long. Here's the clue. Make rest a necessity, not an objective. The objective of life is not to rest. The objective of life is to act. Think of more disciplines. Think of more ways and means in which to use your own wisdom and your own philosophy. And use your own attitude, your own faith, your own courage, your own commitment, your own desires, your own excitement. Invested in discipline so that it's not wasted the smallest of discipline. Thereby transform home your life. Join the 5%. Join the 10%. Join the 3%. Yes, when I went and got this little book, Richest Men in Babylon, the same day I heard about it, I went and got it. Someone says, well, Mr. Rohn, does that make you different than most other people? And the answer, yes. Somebody says, well, why is that? We don't know. We don't know.